Well, here it is, our new tractor, Yanmar YT359C. I'm going to tell you a couple things today. This is not an action video. I'm going to tell you why I chose this size tractor, and then I'm going to tell you why I chose this specific tractor. That's right. I really have no more information than you about choosing a tractor. We go to the dealership, we do a test drive, we read the specs, look at the specs. So what I'm going to do is be really transparent and explain why I chose this one. And then over the next couple of years, however long it takes, we will figure out whether my initial observations were valid or whether they overlooked something more serious or more important. That's just what we'll have to figure out. Before we talk about anything else, I'll answer the big question in the room. Yeah, the elephant in the room. Why did you not get a green one? And the answer is probably more complex than I can go into in this episode, but at a high level, it became difficult for me to use these expensive green tractors that are getting more and more expensive every day, and to say to you guys, well, you got to have a green one, you got to have a green one. I think it's important that I take the step here to say, what can we find that meets my criteria? A high-end tractor that's cost competitive. This is not the cheapest tractor I could find, and that's just not how I'm wired. I don't necessarily want the least expensive tractor I can find. I want something that's high-end, but not priced with the same arrogance that the green team seems to have chosen in recent days. So expect to see more of that on this channel this coming year. It's not that I'm anti-deer. I'm really not. I just feel like that it's important that not only do I try to show you some of the details of some of the other brands, but I need to try to learn for myself and give them a good, true comparison, give them a good, true chance in my mind, right? So that I can do my best to help you make wise decisions. Obviously, you don't use just my videos to make a decision, but a lot of you do depend on some of the input that we provide, and so we want to provide as objective and as detailed input as possible. We see some of these machines on different channels, but we typically don't see the level of depth or perhaps the level of criticism that you're going to see on our channel. That's just how I think, right? I really want to try to pick apart these tractors and find things that I like about them, why I would choose one over another, and that's what I intend to do with this tractor, as well as with others that you might or might not see on the channel in the future. But first, let's talk about why I wanted this size tractor. I'm standing by the loader here. I will use the loader. In fact, I'll probably use the loader a lot, but that really wasn't the primary purpose of this particular tractor. What I wanted and what I've really never had, other than to borrow one occasionally, is a tractor big enough to handle my 12-foot turf batwing from Woods on the yard here, to handle that gracefully, as well as something that can handle the TS10 and yet still be compact with tight turning radius, and handle that at, just full speed, full throttle. Yeah, I've used Old Salty and I've used a 3046R on both of those particular attachments, and it works. Old Salty's just, he's the only cab tractor I've had and in this size range at all, and I just didn't find him to be enough horsepower for that 12-foot turf batwing mower. I'd have to go really slowly if the grass was, overgrown at all. So I wanted a cab tractor, which I could mow with both of these big mowers. That was my primary purpose in choosing a tractor this size. Now, I'm also interested in determining whether a loader this size will offset the need for Johnny 5. Yeah, I have the 5075E. I've been wanting to sell it for a long time, but at the same time, I've been hesitant to let it go because it has so much more loader capacity than the 3 Series tractors I have, the 30 to 45 horsepower tractors. And so I was just afraid that there are times that I needed that extra loader capacity. And what I'm going to try to figure out over the near term here is whether this loader will achieve that goal for me, or whether having that bigger loader like Johnny 5 is important for my property. Because that's a tractor that, other than the loader, I can pretty much do everything else with these smaller tractors. And I don't like the turning radius. I don't like that it's got only 12 fixed gears with no shift on the go capability. Yes, it does have the synchronized transmission, so you can shift, but not under load, right? True shift on the go like a power shift transmission. It doesn't have anything like that. This tractor does. We'll get to that more in a minute. Some folks on greentractortalk.com thought maybe I got a Coyote. Well, Christy did get me a Coyote for Christmas, but it's a plastic one. But it works great, by the way. We've had it up here for 2 days now, and the geese will fly down to the pond, and they'll get about 6 or 8 foot off of the pond, and then you'll hear them honking and start going crazy, and they're never to come back. It's working well. So I'm a big fan of at least this Coyote. Guys, we've been doing this YouTube thing for a long time now, 10 years actually. And we're at the point with the compact tractor crowd where we can be selective. So we are working with Yanmar on this tractor, but it's not a situation where Yanmar was the only opportunity we had. We specifically chose this tractor, not even just the brand, but this tractor as what we wanted to feature next on our channel. And there are several reasons why I chose this tractor. Again, with no more information than what you could get by going to the dealer and doing some of the checkout for yourself. The main reason, the first reason that I wanted this tractor was the transmission. This transmission is different than any other transmission on any compact tractor in existence. To my knowledge, there's no other transmission similar to this. It is a combination gear drive with a hydrostatic motor mounted onto the gear drive such that you can get infinite speeds in each range. You got 3 ranges, just like a typical hydrostatic tractor, but you can get infinite speeds, but you still have the extra power that a gear drive transmission can deliver. So in other words, the advantages of a gear drive transmission without the disadvantages of a gear drive transmission. So we're going to put this to the test. I'm not going to try to explain in detail how it works in this video. I'm actually going to give myself a little bit more time so that I can show you in a way that I think you can understand. There are a lot of videos about this transmission out there, but to be quite frank, and I mean no offense to anybody that's put one of these out before us, I don't think any of them do a good job of explaining to the common person of really how this thing works, how you can use it on your property to solve your needs. And over the next couple of years or so, we're going to try to determine, first of all, if it is what I hope it is, and if so, how I can communicate that to you. We're on the back side now, and I wanted to talk about the PTO horsepower. This tractor is rated engine horsepower at 59. Engine horsepower, if I haven't discussed it in enough detail, it's not a number you can actually use, right? The only number that is shown in a specification that you can actually use is the PTO horsepower. Back in the day, they had a third number called drawbar horsepower, meaning how much you could pull from the drawbar. They never mention that anymore. Back in the day, it was typically less than the PTO horsepower. But the point is that drawbar horsepower and PTO horsepower is the only thing that's actually usable on the tractor. The engine horsepower is not. What we see on this tractor is an efficient transmission such that the 59 engine horsepower produces what I believe is 52 PTO horsepower. So this is essentially the same PTO horsepower that a 4066R has from John Deere, right? So a 66 engine horsepower tractor only produces that same amount of horsepower, maybe even a little bit less. So I wanted to get the maximum PTO horsepower I could get out of this tractor. I think we'll see it has plenty of power for the attachments that I want to use, but please stay tuned for future videos as I put that theory to the test. When I stepped into the cab, I saw 2 things that struck me. One was the spaciousness of the cab. It is huge for this size tractor. And then the second thing, which is more important to me actually, I did the same test I always do. I ran the tractor to full throttle, drove it around the dealer's lot, and I found this cab to be 76, 77 dB on my little watch test. That is much quieter than the John Deere tractor. And so I really wanted a quiet cab, a cab that I could feel comfortable with. There's less vibration in here, and less vibration makes it quieter and makes it more comfortable for the all-day work. And so the quietness of the cab, the spaciousness of the cab, that's what really struck me in the dealer's lot during my test drive. The next two features that I saw are related. The first is the high ground clearance. This thing has a lot of clearance under the tractor. If you've watched our channel, you've noticed that we've had a lot of trouble when we're in the brush running a brush mulcher or grapple. We've broken hoses. We've had a lot of challenges with that. And additionally, we're not able to do any row crop work with most of our other tractors because they are so low to the ground. This tractor has a lot of space under it. The spec sheet may not show that much difference, but when you actually look under it, you can see that it is quite spacious. I'm not exactly sure why. There is one feature I'll show you on the back that may explain it, but I don't think it fully explains it. The related issue is underbody protection. There is, on the back half of the tractor, basically from the front of the cab on back, there is, I would call it a skid plate. Now it's not it's not like it's a 1/2-inch steel or something that thick, but it is a thin piece of steel that is protected on the bottom side to keep brush and all from hitting the underbody, the soft belly of a tractor, right? This is one of the weak spots of a tractor as compared to a track loader or skid loader, is that underbelly, right? Tractors are typically pretty exposed on the underside. And then when I move forward on the tractor under the engine compartment, it looks to me like it wouldn't be that hard to put an equivalent piece of underbody protection there. So I'll probably work with some of my partners to see if I can get an underbody skid plate type kit that'll fit this tractor. I've got bolts on the back, bolt holes that I can tell I can work to, and then I think on the front as well. But then when I got to looking closer, it's even better than that. Let's take a look at the steering. So right here we see this bar that's purely for protection of the tie rod ends, okay? And then moving backwards, we see that they've really gone out of their way to route these power steering hoses such that they stay right in next to the frame. And I actually think that if I get the skid plate, which would probably attach to here, if I make my own skid plate, I probably could come on up here and hold that in. I might even be able to do that with a zip tie somehow, and that is quite protected. But even beyond that, they already have it wrapped, right? Which I've not seen on at least most other manufacturers. So this is on the top side of the axle instead of behind or exposed back here. And then it's right here at the frame. And so I think if I could get this corralled right in here, I just don't see a whole lot of danger of breaking that hose. And I've broken several of those on the green tractor. Let's look at the other side.
Yeah.
So here we are on the other side, and it looks identical, right? So they've brought that hose right out here, and it's pretty much protected by the frame. I suppose there might be a way to get a stick up through there, but that's going to be difficult. And if I did have a skid plate that came out maybe this far, that would go even more towards protecting that. So I'm really excited about the protection of the underbody on this tractor. Took me a minute to find the hood release. It's actually in the cab. So I was working around all in the front. I could not find it. But what I wanted to talk about in here was the engine. The engine on this tractor is much larger than most of the other tractors in this class. In fact, it's much larger than all but one. The only other one I could find with a 3.3 liter engine was a Kubota M6060. Even the other Kubotas in the MX line that are in this horsepower have much smaller engines. This one's naturally aspirated. It doesn't have any turbo, no aftercooler, intercooler, whatever, and it's as plain as you can get. Of course, it's got the DPF, and it does not have DEF because it's in the 60 horsepower range. But I wanted to try this tractor because of the larger engine. I've always been a little bit disappointed with the lugging power of my 5E. It's got a smaller engine than this, even though it's 75 horse. So it'll be interesting to see how this works out. But I thought the big engine was something that would be interesting to me. So those are the list of technical reasons why I've chosen this tractor. Again, we'll see over time if they turn out to be valid or the most important or unimportant. Putting myself on trial here a little bit, I guess. Now, I don't really have time or don't want to take the time in this episode to go through some of my broad rules again about choosing a manufacturer, choosing which tractor or brand of tractor you want to go through. But I will do that in light of Yanmar, the brand, and we'll kind of evaluate, does this fit my long-standing rules? You know, as example, no rebrand. Well, this is not a rebrand. It's made by Yanmar. And I have a few other rules like that, and we'll go through those in another episode, but I just don't want to go too long-winded in this one. Just wanted to hit the high spots. Why I chose this size tractor and why I chose this particular one. I hope you find this helpful, and yeah, put me on trial here a little bit. We'll see if it turns out to be a wise decision. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time on Tractor Time with Tim. Is there anything of which one can say, look, this is something new? It was here already. Long ago, it was here before our time.